Are you struggling with roadblocks as a woman in the challenging and constantly changing world of corporate America? If you feel stuck in your career, you may be holding yourself back and may not even realize it. Prepare to be enlightened by the meaningful discussions here at the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Each week, gather the insight you need to break down those walls of limiting beliefs. Unleash your full potential and unlock the leader within. Listen to raw conversations with corporate women as they share inspiring stories with the purpose of obtaining their dream career and living a truly fulfilling life. Here's your host, Rosie Zilinskas.
Hey everyone, welcome to No Woman Left Behind. I'm Rosie Zilinskas. Today we're talking to Claire Bossong, and we're going to showcase how millennials are navigating the workforce. Let me tell you a little bit about Claire. Claire is 22 years old and lives on a small farm in a rural community. She attended the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where she studied agricultural and consumer economics with a concentration in public policy and law with a minor in animal sciences. She is currently working as a district director for an Illinois State Representative and plans to move forward in her political career. You will hear from Claire about the challenges of getting a job during a pandemic and also the challenges of being in politics as a female and as a millennial. Hi, Claire. Welcome to the podcast. Claire, I know that you went to the University of Illinois, as I did too. The alma mater at the University of Illinois has a saying. Do you know what that saying is by any chance?
Well, there's a few that I have in my mind, but let's hear what you're thinking.
So it says, to the happy children of the future, those of the past send greetings. And I just love that saying because I know that so many women before me paved the way for women like myself. And I want to do that for women coming up behind me. And so I know that you and I have been talking for quite a while now, probably a couple of years. And I know that you recently became employed. So I want to start asking you, how difficult was it for you to navigate trying to get a job during a pandemic, being your first job and being a millennial? So tell me about that.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited for you and to do this for other women to listen, and I'm excited to listen as well. But job searching was definitely difficult, and I still imagine that it is, even though I am employed. I think I started applying for jobs while I was still in college, and I graduated December 2020. So just a few months before that. Did for about 6 months into 2021 as well, with no luck. I was applying in multiple states on multiple different job search engines, mailing applications, doing all sorts of things like that. I decided to substitute teach while I was doing that for a source of a little income. And also I know how crazy it was for teachers during the pandemic, and it still is. So I wanted to help out in my community with that. But I really didn't even apply for the job that I had. It just fell in my lap. So I can't even really attest to where I would be at without this, just moment that fell in my lap. I got really lucky, and not a lot of people do. I've had friends that apply for hundreds of jobs and search for over a year, and they just don't get the one that they're looking for. So they end up settling, and then they're not as happy with where they could be with what they got their degree in, and spend all the money and all the time working towards. So it was frustrating, to say the least. I don't think I had it as bad as a lot of other people. But it's just a hard time for everyone right now. And I don't know when it's going to get better job wise. I know in Illinois unemployment is lowering, so that's a good thing. But yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. So you said a couple of things that I wanted to go back to. You said that a couple of your friends were applying for, did you say 100 jobs? Hundreds of jobs?
Yes, I have friends that were in the 80 to 100 range, and I was probably like in the 60 to 80 range as well. Just because there's easier ways to apply for jobs online. You put your resume in and you can just click and send. So it's easy to kind of get up to that amount of applications, but to not be hearing back from half of those 80 to 100 jobs, that's just, it's crazy. So you don't know if you could have made it, you don't know if they hired someone else, so you're just waiting, and it's an endless waiting game for something that you were really excited for.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm curious, I know you and I did some networking, and how good were you at networking?
I think thanks to my mother, I'm good at networking. I like to talk to people. I can pretty much talk to anybody about whatever. And that's also been helpful in the choice of industry that I've chose to go into, which is the political world. It's all about networking, all about meeting people. If you're quiet and you don't like to talk and don't put yourself out there, you're not going to go as far as someone who is constantly networking. So I think that comes easy to me. It does not for a lot of people, especially during the pandemic when you can't be meeting people face to face. You have to do it over Zoom, LinkedIn, just things like that, where that takes a little bit more time and effort to setting up meetings and things like that.
Yeah, so the reason why I was asking is because I know through my research and a couple of organizations that I belong to, is that networking is the number one way of actually being fortunate to get a job. So networking is the number one tip of the day today, because like you, I know you and I have had multiple conversations over the last couple of years, but not, to your point, not everybody either one knows that networking is the best way for you to obtain a job, or two, how to properly do networking. So when it comes to networking, you have to make sure that you're putting out feelers to as many people as you can and try to talk to them for like 15 to 20 minutes. So is that something that you were doing?
Yeah. So in a couple of my classes that dealt with policy, government, things like that, we were taught how to do like a coffee chat or networking chats, which of course the coffee is actually going out and getting coffee with people, which I have not yet to be able to do in real life. But we do the coffee chats over Zoom and things like that. So yeah, just 10, 15 minutes, have your questions lined up, have one or two questions. In the political field, people do not have time. So if they're squeezing in the 10 to 15 minutes to meet with you, that means a lot. And you just got to get through your questions, and hopefully that will lead you to another person who will lead you to 10 more other people. And that's what networking is getting someone who wants to help, or multiple people who want to help to get you where you're supposed to be.
And so I know you said that your job kind of fell in your lap, but obviously your networking may have happened or helped it. So how did you end up getting your job?
Right. So I was applying for jobs, not getting any luck, like I said before. And through the grapevine, someone had heard that I went to U of I, and I was studying for public policy and law, government, somewhere along that line. And so they called my mom. They said, has your daughter had any interest in this field? We're looking for someone to fill a position like as soon as possible. And so I took it at the first jump. I interviewed and didn't hesitate hardly at all to take it. But yeah, so that's just people knowing or hearing about where I went to school that got me the job, and the major that I was in as well.
Of course. And of course, going to the University of Illinois didn't hurt any at all, right?
Right, not at all.
Yeah. So now, obviously, in your age demographic and knowing some of your friends, have most of your friends been able to gain employment?
Yes, most of my friends have. A few of them have completely switched the job area that they were going into, just not because it was necessarily hard to find a job in that area, but because they tried it, they didn't like it, and now they're going back to school, or they're doing something that maybe they're not as interested in while they're trying to figure out what they want to do. I don't know why it is that all my friends, we all eventually did find where we're supposed to be. it doesn't work out like that for everybody. I know there's some people that are still searching for jobs, but I have a friend who's an engineer. She works in Chicago. I don't know if that's a booming industry right now. It could be. That's why she got a job. I have a few friends that are going to be teachers. I know that they're looking for help there. So it's not necessarily the hardest industry to get into right now. And they definitely need the help. So with my friends and I have definitely been lucky.
Interesting. And so obviously I graduated from U of I a long time ago. So how do you have any kind of resources or help from the university in order to get a job?
Yeah, so well, LinkedIn is the number one resource that I used while I was in college. I had no idea what that was until probably my junior or senior year when I started looking for those jobs and the internships. And so University of Illinois has, and that's how we met, I believe, their
Yes.
own kind of LinkedIn. I don't remember what it's called, like U of I Connect or something.
Yes.
But that's University of Illinois alumni who you can network based on your major, based on your class, all different sorts of things. And I thought that was awesome. But just even reaching out to my old professors and my mentors or my academic advisor to see if there's any other resources that they can give me, that's also networking. But yeah, those are probably the main two that I've used from U of I.
Okay, sounds good. Now, obviously, you're in the political industry, right? So tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you've encountered already, and you've only been in the industry less than a year?
Since June, yep.
Since June, okay. So have you come across any challenges as a millennial, as a female in the political industry?
Yes. So in the political industry, they are seeing more minority groups and more females joining the forces than they did, 50 years ago. It's way better than it was, but it can always be better. I come from a small rural community, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's ever been a female representative for my district, and probably the surrounding ones as well. That's just the way it's been. The men were the political figures back then, and it's just stuck around the rural communities. And definitely my age doesn't help because older generations seem to think that the younger generations don't know what they're talking about and that we're ruining, the political industry, let alone ruining the United States or the world, whatever they like to believe. But so when I'm answering the phones, trying to help people, you sound young. Do you even know what you're talking about? So I'm like, I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this, and this is what I studied at school, So that's been a struggle, is just getting people to trust me and getting them to get out of that mindset that women are just as capable of men in this position, and it doesn't take just a certain person to do this job.
Sure. And so that's interesting that they point out that you're really, really young. And so one of the things that I always recommend for younger women, no matter what their job is, if someone comments on their age, is to, kind of just graze over it, don't even acknowledge it, or say, I don't even know that you necessarily have to say, I do know what I'm talking about, but just say, oh, thank you for noticing. And then just kind of graze over that. Because I think if you, number one, address it or say, or especially don't say your age, because then you lose credibility. Or even, you've only been in your position since June. They don't really need to know that you've been in your position since June. So I think we need to try to hold on to as much credibility as possible. But as far as your love of politics, because that's what brought you here, right? So what do you love about politics?
Well, it's definitely never dull moment in my office, and especially in Illinois. There's a lot going on. A lot of people from different states have a lot to say about Illinois. It's a progressive state. It's one of the first states to get anything done. That's happening in the news right now. So it's always changing. There's always new topics, bills, laws, things that people need to get through. And it's just, I've always been interested in the government, the way it works, the history behind it all. And just more recently, I'm like, what can I do to fix that? Because eventually someday, I'd love to be in the seat, be in the room where it happens. And I love Hamilton, so that's my quote from Hamilton. But I don't see a lot of young kids my age, young political, minded people that want to change for the better. And so that's my goal, is to what can I do to make the world a better place, or the United States, I guess, a better place than what it is, or what it has been in the past few years, it seems like.
Absolutely. And we have seen a lot of younger women like AOC, she's in New York. So it's so nice to see some women in prominent positions in the government that are actually opening up minds, to just at least to expose people to other ideas, you're right, to other thoughts, because especially like you said, some of the older generations sometimes are so set in their ways that it's okay for someone else to have their own opinion, even if you don't agree with it. You still have to be respectful of the opinion. So, but absolutely. And so are there many women that are coming into the political landscape, do you think?
It's hard to say right now. There are a few in Illinois that I'm seeing shift, because this is an election year. So there are a few women running for Senate and Congresswomen, which I think is awesome. I've met a few of them. And then the few that are in the House, I know their names, of course, right away, because I'm always watching what they're doing and seeing what kind of example that they're setting for me, as well as any other, young girl who thinks what they're doing is awesome.
And so that brings me to another good question. In your office or in your district, are there female mentors that you are working with, or how does that work?
Actually, I just talked to a lady today about possibly getting in a group that's for women that like politics, like the government. It's a whole year-long series. They usually prefer younger women. It's an all-women group, but they prefer the younger generations to get in there and learn about the things that go on in Springfield. They think they take us out to Washington, D.C. and just all around the state. So I'm looking forward to that. Those are the mentors. There's like Republican and Democratic women groups around the state, around any state, that people can join in on. I am a smaller town, so I don't have any, direct mentorship in my field, but the group that I'm looking to be a part of and apply for is going to be really awesome for me.
Good. I was going to say, like, pretty much anybody, and it really doesn't matter how old you are, but especially for the younger women, it's really important to have a mentor, because at this point in your career, you don't know what you don't know. And, I wholeheartedly believe that as a woman, I need to help those other women that are coming up, behind me. And so having a strong mentor, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be a woman if there aren't any women in your district, but to have a mentor, especially a woman, is going to be phenomenal for you to figure out, to just so that they can teach you the ropes, and especially in politics, right?
Yeah.
So how long is this mentorship program?
It's a whole year. And so they'll do different things. I think like 1 week in a month.
That's going to be great. So along those lines, continuing education is really important, right? So I wholeheartedly believe that continuing education is one of the ways for you to just open your mind, learn other things. So what do you think you're going to be, and I know you're going to be doing the mentorship program, but are there any other things that you're doing today, such as, books or listening to podcasts or anything like that, kind of expose you to other ideas?
I do. I have started reading again. In between high school and college, I was reading my textbooks and things like that. I didn't really have time to sit down and read a book. And I loved reading in high school. So I have started reading a little bit different things than what I was in high school, but so I have been reading more. I do listen to a few podcasts. I haven't recently because I've been busy. But there's also a community college in our district really close to my house. And so we get a catalog of what classes they have. And, they're $25 for an hour. You just go in. So there's like history, there's genealogy, there's how to travel, for cheap, like just different exciting little classes that are interesting to me that I have thought about doing as well. They're not necessarily like a skill, but it's just, an exciting, different opportunity.
Okay. All right. So shifting a little bit to goals. Do you have written goals? Do you have a plan for your career? Like what have you thought about where you're going to be? And let's not even going to go 3 years, just a year from now.
Okay. So the representative that I work for, this is an election year. And so that's high stakes for anybody in the political world, because if their boss doesn't get reelected, you're out of job. So we're hoping that he stays, but the districts are also changing this year. So with the census and with people moving out of the state, the districts are all changing. And so he is moving up north, and I'm looking for opportunities up there to work for him in his new part of the district. It's a different world up north than it is in my small town, and I'm really looking forward to that, actually. So just getting familiarized with different people, even if it's just an hour north of me, and a new place by myself, not at home again, meeting new people. So that's just my short-term 1 year where I'm hoping to be, but there's definitely political aspirations in the next, 10, 15 years. So.
Right. And it just gives you exposure to a whole other realm of individuals, situations, just like the city itself. So I think that's going to be great. And so, so do you have written goals down, by the way?
I do. Yes. I'm a big goal writer, big planner. I'm very organized, so I love to have everything written out. I struggle sometimes if things don't go exactly how I have it written down, but that's one of the things that I'm working on, is learning to adjust and adapt. But I think it's good to have things written down and just get it out there, instead of just having it in your head and forgetting about something that you thought you wanted to do. So
absolutely. And people that actually have written goals down are much more successful than those people that either have no goals or have them in their head swimming around. Okay. So you had said something about, if your representative does not get reelected, you're out of a job. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what is your plan B then, if that happens?
Well, I guess I haven't really thought about plan Bs, which is bad on my part, because I'm so like excited for him, because I think he's gonna, do well, but nobody knows in any district, in any state. So I have been tossing up the idea of going to Springfield or Chicago, because those are big political hubs in the state of Illinois. I eventually want to get to DC. The pandemic has not really allowed me to yet, but that would be another avenue that I've looked into as well. And that was one of the avenues I was looking into while I was applying for jobs this past spring.
Right. I do recall you and I having a conversation about you moving out to DC eventually. So, we'll see what happens, right, with this pandemic.
Yes.
Now, what other challenges? So going back to the challenges question, being, again, a millennial woman in politics, you said being young is one of the challenges. What other challenges have you encountered?
A lot of people don't understand why I enjoy where I'm at. They think, first of all, Illinois, it's corrupt, it's crazy. Why would you ever want to be put in a position where you're getting yelled at? But I mean, that's my passion. So I don't question anybody else's passion. So it's just, what interests me, what's in my brain and my body that I like about it. And, I like history. So history is a part of government and politics. And that's, So people questioning, what I'm doing, what my purpose is, I guess that's a big challenge for me.
And actually, that's not even a challenge. The people that don't know what their purpose is, those are actually people that have challenges, right? So you're actually lucky, because you're already doing something that you love. And honestly, that's probably half the battle for everybody that's in a job. And there's a statistic out there that says that 70% of people are not happy in the work that they do. And they're, trudging in and day out, not liking their job. And there's just so much time to be in a job that you don't like. So that's always one of the things that I recommend is like, if you're looking for a job, try to focus on something that you love. So you are so lucky that you love politics. And, I guess I understand the question from people to you as far as like, what are you doing? Like it's politics, but you know what, if you love it, then go for it. Then, do what you love. And then it doesn't feel like you're working because you're actually having fun. So I'm in the insurance industry and, with the insurance industry, 95% of people kind of fall into the insurance. So it's like, I just fell into it because my dad or my, some family members in the business. And my typical response is like, well, I went to U of I. My degree was in actuarial science, which is all insurance based. So I'm one of the few people that actually went to school for insurance, and I'm still in insurance. So it's just when you love it, right? So that's fantastic. Now, what about networks, like networking in your area, with millennials? Do you do a lot of networking with your age group?
There's not many opportunities around here for that. I feel like, at least that I don't know. There are some groups about an hour away that have like a young professional network, young professions network. So they'll do like after hours events. And those have been shut down recently due to COVID. I haven't had a chance to get to those, but I know that they're canceled for like the next 3 months. But immediately in my community, there's not very many opportunities for that. So that's unfortunate.
Interesting. Yeah, that is unfortunate. So I guess in those situations, you're going to have to come up with your way of networking with other individuals, even though it's over Zoom. And I will tell you, it's not, I mean, you and I have never met in real life, but I hope to meet in real life, hopefully once this pandemic is over. But at the very least, are you trying to network via Zoom anywhere in the world, really?
Yeah, so I guess I really haven't recently, just with the new job and getting used to things, but I'm constantly networking with people over meetings and getting my name out there. So it's not necessarily my peers, but it's people in the political world or any constituents that have problems, when we're having meetings, trying to figure out a bill for them, figure out solutions, that I consider that networking because they see my face, they see my name, and they're going to remember that I helped them instead of, just answering a phone call.
Sure. And so what have you done if you have a constituent that's really angry and agitated? Like how are you as a professional conducting yourself to mitigate those situations?
Yeah, I had worked for a congressman before I worked for my state representative. So congressmen, they're congressmen and women, they are on a much bigger scale than just a state politician because the whole United States is watching them, as opposed to, you don't really care about other states than your own. So that was an interesting job. I did get yelled at a lot on the phone, and that was when I was in college. So I didn't really know what to say then. I would usually just direct them to a supervisor. But now I'm by myself in this office, so I'm the supervisor. And luckily, my boss does not get those phone calls often. He's a great guy. He tries his best. But I have had some instances where I just have to say, I'm helping you right now. I'm just the messenger. I know that you're upset. There's heightened emotions during this time. The pandemic has caused havoc on a lot of people. But we just need to calm down so that I can help you as best as I can with your situation and see if I can somehow find a solution for you and with the state.
And that's a great way to put it. And it's also putting them more at ease that you're trying to help them, right? Because you're the partner. Now, I will tell you this, I think it's actually great that you don't have another supervisor that you can rely on, because that makes you be more of a problem solver. So that's actually really good, because a lot of times I think people just kind of run to their boss with, hey, I have this problem, but they don't come up with solutions. And you almost don't have a choice. You have to come up with
Right.
solutions because you're the only one there. And I think that's going to be a great learning curve for you, because you're very quickly going to realize how to put people at ease. And I worked with this woman years ago, and she worked with brokers, and brokers sometimes brought, problems and issues. And her whole idea is kill them with kindness. The more calm you are, then it kind of just de-escalates the situation. And I think if
Yep.
you're doing that already, that's fantastic. So how many people do you think you have to deal with on a regular basis?
Well, we actually just came up with a number to kind of do like a little blurb for our boss that says how many bills he's wrote, how many people he's helped. And so this isn't necessarily a people number, but it's how many cases that we've worked on and how many times we've had to get on the phone. And I haven't been here a year, so it hasn't been all me, but my coworker, the woman before me, and me in 2021 helped 3,500 cases.
Wow, that's
So
incredible.
yeah, it was a big number for us. So
And that's amazing, because that means that you're helping 3,500 people that actually have problems. And like I said before, you get an opportunity to problem solve with them. So,
yeah.
so that's fantastic. Now, I know your manager or your representative is there. Has he given you any tips on how to advance in your career, or provided you with any kind of insight on what you should be doing in your career now?
We've talked about it a little bit, because he does know that, someday when he's done, that I could possibly be coming up and trying to take his seat someday. But I haven't been able to go to Springfield. I think only one time, so I haven't really got to see anything in action. And I'm dying to go, because that's just right up my alley. So I think once I get more of an opportunity there, he's willing to show me the processes more. But I do ask a lot of questions about, why do you do this? What's this bill about? I'm constantly asking him questions to understand more of the processes that go into it. And he's always willing to answer the questions and help me out there. But firsthand, I haven't been able to see much. So
Yeah, I mean, you're relatively new to politics. And I think you asking questions is really important, because I think a lot of people maybe step into a position and they are told you have to do this process, and they just do the process without really asking questions. And when you do that, you may not really understand the big picture as to why you're doing what you're doing. And especially with, a new set of eyes, you may not necessarily have to do what you've been doing it, because there's a better way nowadays, especially with technology. And I mean, again, you going through U of I and me going through U of I, two completely different situations, right?
yeah.
I have a nephew, and my sister went to U of I. My nephew, when he was going through U of I, it was so funny, because I get the alumni magazine, and there was a picture of us at the Armory, and it was all people registering. And at that time, when I was going to U of I, we had to go in person to the Armory, and there was all these lines, and the A through Z sign and whatever. And in the picture that I was looking at when he was going to U of I was like, oh my gosh, this is the old way that we used to do it. And he's like, yeah, it's all online now.
Yep.
It's just like,
Yep.
it's just so completely different, right?
Right.
So is there a lot of technology that you're using in your current position right now?
I have actually helped out my colleague and my boss a lot with the technology side of things, just making things easier, because exactly what you said, there were some things that they were doing before that I jumped in and I was like, there's so many different, better ways to do it. I'm a hard worker anyway, but there's that saying, work harder or work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's something easy that can be fixed technologically wise, that's where I kind of stepped in and helped streamline things to make them easier. But I mean, we usually just use like the Google Docs, Google Mail, Google Sheets, things like that. So it's not a lot of technology based, but helping, certain people try to figure that out to make it easier was a step for me.
I'm chuckling because when my kids are, my oldest son is going to be 24 this year and my daughter's going to be 21. And when they were going through like grade school, junior high, like the whole Google Drive and all that stuff was up and coming. And I was like, you're doing what? Like, yeah. I was like, and then they had to teach me. And actually, truth be told, my kids teach me a lot of the technology. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me I could do that on my phone?
Yeah.
So totally. But, I just wanted to point out that there's also what's called reverse mentorship. You're actually mentoring your boss as well. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that we as more seasoned and tenure, I'm not going to say older, but more seasoned and tenure people can also be mentored by these younger generations that are coming up because
Yep.
technology is changing so quickly and it's so hard to keep up with technology. And truth be told, when my kids were in junior high and high school and I got them their first like smartphone, I was like trying to keep up and keep track. And after a while, I just gave up because I couldn't
Yep.
keep up. I just couldn't keep up. I was like, oh, whatever. You're in high school, you figure it out.
Yep.
You're old enough to know what's right and what's wrong, and then I'll just let you figure it out. So.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's a good point too, because you, with a fresh set of eyes, you can see things completely different and mentor them as well. So, I mean, I think that is fantastic. So Claire, is there anything that you can think of that younger generations and maybe even like junior high or high school women should be doing in this day and age in order to navigate the school system, college system, and then get into a job?
So my sister always told me that I was thinking about college way earlier than I should have been, probably like 6th or 7th grade. I was like, U of I, that's where I'm going. And some of my friends, they just applied to U of I on a whim, but I was like, this is the best school ever. Like it's a Big Ten school, I was so proud to go there. So from probably 6th grade, I was in clubs, as many as I could be in, but I mean, a few that you're interested in, I think is a huge thing for junior high and high school women and all students to be a part of. Get yourself involved, do something that you're interested in. But it's never too early to start thinking about what you want to do. And I've definitely changed what I wanted to do since junior high to now, probably 2 or 3 times actually. But so getting interested, starting to think about what path you're going to be on and what groups or different people that you can talk to get in the right path. The clubs, like I said, definitely helped me put a lot on my resume, especially coming from a small town where there's not a lot of opportunity. I wanted to make my resume as big as possible on my application. So those clubs helped me out. Studying really well helped me out to get into U of I. You have to have good grades. But, networking in high school was a big thing for me too. Getting people in the community to know who I was, talking to people, telling them what I wanted to do because they care. And people will ask me still today, are you doing politics? Or I wanted to be a vet. So they're like, are you still doing a vet? They want to know where you're at and how you can help them or how they can help you. You just have to ask.
And I think those are key words right there. You just have to ask. As a woman, I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, throughout my career is that you have to ask for what you need, because otherwise, how are people going to know? Sometimes you just assume that people know what you need, and it's not until you actually verbalize that something happens. So I think that's really, really important. So, well, Claire, this has been such a good conversation. I love that you are passionate about politics. I love that you are in it to make a difference, not just for the state, but for the United States. So you're going to go a long way, and I am so excited to see where you're going. So I am going to ask you to provide me with 2 actionable tips that you can recommend to our listeners, because my whole mission is to help women through career development. So I want to make sure that we leave some actionable items to our listeners. So do you have a couple of tips that you can provide?
Yes. So we kind of talked about them already, but I mean, they're the ones that have got me to where I am today. So I just have to say them again. So we just kind of touched upon not being afraid of asking questions. If you think it's a dumb question, there's never a dumb question. Something that helps me whenever I think that is asking it in my head and kind of playing with what I'm going to say to get it out correctly the first time. Not to a point where I'm going to overthink the question, but just saying, this is how I'm going to ask it, and not being afraid, because you're holding yourself back when you don't ask any questions, like we talked about. And building on that, don't be afraid to question anything. So if you know you're right and something is going wrong, you have to be responsible and you have to say something. It's uncomfortable situations sometimes, but in my line of work, if somebody's doing something wrong that we're not supposed to be doing, I'm going to say something, because it's better to say it than get somebody in trouble. So that was my first one. And then we also touched upon this a little bit, but setting goals, making lists, and planning. Planning your day even. I go to the extent of planning my whole entire day every day. Some people cannot do that, and that's okay. But I have a nice planner. It's pretty. I have stickers, it's a fun thing for me to do, but also I never forget things that I put in my planner. It just really helps organize your work life and your personal life. I think it's fun, but I don't think you can go wrong with planning in any work, any day-to-day life. When people have kids, you have to plan out appointments and things like that. So, and time blocking is also a huge, huge help in any industry, I think, as well.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I love those tips. And one thing about the time blocking, this is so interesting because, again, as far as technology is concerned, technology is fantastic and it's great, but it's constantly interrupting your day. So to your point of time blocking, there's a great book that's called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And he is a believer of just literally focusing on one thing and shutting out everything else, because you will be much more productive if you just sit down. There's also another technique, the Pomodoro technique, where you can sit down and do a timer for like 25 minutes of just one thing without any distractions, and then take a 5-minute break. But those are production techniques. So like you using your planner, I mean, that's fantastic. And actually I have a very pretty planner as well. And I love writing things in, and I'm also a list checker. It's like, I love it when I can just, check something off my list. So I think that's fantastic. So, well, thank you again for being here. And Claire, is there any social media handle where you hang out or anything like that?
Yeah, so I deleted my Twitter. I do not have a Twitter. That was just not good for me. It was a toxic environment. So I do not have Twitter. But I have my Instagram and I have my LinkedIn, which I shared with both of you. But my Instagram right now is Claire, BOSS _ and that's it.
Okay. All right, cool. So if anybody wants to follow Claire, all of Claire's information is going to be in the show notes. So, we'll get them there. And Claire, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate our conversation. I think we got some tremendous valuable tips here. So thank you very much. What a valuable conversation we just had with Claire. I just wanted to recap her 2 tips. The first tip is don't be afraid to ask questions. Her second tip is don't be afraid to question anything, meaning that if you see something that doesn't sit quite well with you, ask why things are being done that way. Claire loves politics, and it is very apparent that that is her passion. So that's another thing that I want to remind you. Figure out what you love to do and see if you can find a job, a paying job, no less, where you can use those skills that you love. There's that saying that says that if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. seek a job where you can use the skills that you are great at and that you love. And if you want to get a hold of Claire, all of her contact information is going to be at our blog on nowomanleftbehind.com. And from there, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Let these stories of self-encouragement and professional development serve as a guide in navigating through corporate America in the most practical and fulfilling way possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the show at nowomanleftbehind.com for more content like this. Leave a rating and share it with your friends because we want to make sure that no woman is left behind. Until I see you next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.